Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Kelsey and I'm a 6-year homeschooler to my 3 kids ages 10 and under, and today I am going to share with you a little bit about our math journey thus far and kind of give you a compare and contrast of some of the different math curriculums we've used and why they worked for us or why they did not work for us. Alright, so I feel like we've been on quite the math journey. So my oldest is going into 5th grade. We actually start school. By the time I post this video, we should have already started our new school year. We actually got our start with my father's world kindergarten, and then we used 1st grade as well, the first half of 1st grade. And then we ended up moving and doing a whole bunch of stuff, and we just really wanted to restart the year. So my father's world kindergarten and 1st grade does not actually use a math curriculum. They do incorporate math, but they don't actually have a math curriculum. So when we were in the middle of 1st grade, we went ahead and started The Good and the Beautiful's Math Level K. It had just come out. This was their older version. So, you know, looking back, if I were to go back in time and change something, I probably would have given him some type of, you know, test to see where he should start. He maybe could have even started at the second half of the kindergarten book, but I just really wanted to fill in some gaps just in case, because we had never done a formal math curriculum. So that's a little bit about where we started. Now, the pros and cons I want to give about The Good and the Beautiful Math. Again, I cannot speak for their new program. I can only speak for their old program. However, some of the things that we did not like about The Good and the Beautiful Math are very similar to what they have now. So the thing that I loved about The Good and the Beautiful Math, and the reason that I was so drawn to it, is because it is very hands-on. My son is a very kinesthetic learner, and so especially when he was in kindergarten, 1st grade, super duper hands-on, and he still is now actually. But I think that was just a huge draw. Back then you got like a ginormous box, like a huge box, and actually the curriculum cost over $100 back then. Now it costs around $50 for the physical, or they actually have it for free now, I believe. All of their math levels are free now, I think, even kindergarten. So that's definitely, if you are interested in that, you can definitely look into it and get it for free and try it out for a couple of weeks and then see how it goes. But back then, they really didn't have that option, and we actually really loved The Good and Beautiful Kindergarten. We used it, we used The Good and the Beautiful Math for kindergarten and 1st grade, and like 6 weeks into 2nd grade math is when it started to go downhill. So again, the reasons that I liked it were that it was very hands-on. It is now, it's free or inexpensive. Back then I didn't really think that $100 was that much, considering you got all of those manipulatives, and we still use all of those manipulatives, by the way. The other thing I loved about The Good and the Beautiful, and still do, is that it's so colorful and engaging, and for a visual learner or for someone who just really appreciates things like that, I always really loved that about The Good and the Beautiful. Now that's not necessarily a reason to use The Good and the Beautiful, but I think that if you have a visual learner, you might need something to kind of draw them in, and it is very visually appealing. The other thing that I really liked about The Good and Beautiful Math is that they had evaluations built in. Now, I don't generally give tests, and if I do, it's usually to when my kids are a little bit older. So in kindergarten, 1st grade, not usually one to give tests, but I like that the majority of the evaluations were verbal. So I would like ask him to count as high as he could, or ask him what these shapes were, or point out these shapes, or whatever it might be. And so I liked that the evaluations were built in. It really helped me to see where he was without him feeling the pressure of taking a test, if that makes sense. The other thing we liked about The Good and the Beautiful was that it was really fun. He always really enjoyed it. They incorporated a lot of games. They had different activities, like, you know, like connect the dots and things like that. So he really enjoyed that curriculum. Problems that started were specifically in their 2nd grade book. Now again, I cannot speak for the new version, but because of these cons, it has pushed me away from even trying the new version. Although a lot of the things that we had the biggest like kind of hold up with they do not have anymore. It was so teacher intensive, super teacher intensive. And it was fine when I just had one child that I was homeschooling. But if you are homeschooling more than one child, it was way too teacher intensive. It took way too long. Most of the time math was taking 45 minutes to an hour. The biggest reason that I am not going to go back to the Good and the Beautiful is because it is a spiral approach. Now, if you are kind of new to the like math world when it comes to curriculum, there are the spiral approach, which basically means you are learning a new concept every day or every couple of days and then spiraling back around. So one day you might learn fractions, the next day, you know, you might do time, the next day you might do money, and then you circle back around to fractions, time, money, and so on until you build upon those skills. The other way to do it is mastery. So mastery basically means that you learn a concept until you master it, right? Mastery. And then there is some curriculums out there that we personally use that I love, that I will get into here in a little bit, but it is where they have a mix of mastery and spiral approach. So our biggest issue with the Good and the Beautiful, once it started getting into a little bit harder math, was that the spiral approach was too spiral. And I say too spiral because I did not feel like teaching him the concept and him only practicing it for a little bit was enough for him to grasp the concept. So he really wouldn't understand fully a concept until we had circled back around to it, you know, 2 or 3 times. And I just feel like for children that struggle with that, that can be very frustrating. So let's just say it's good in the aspect of, you know, if there's something that's really tough. He really struggled with, you know, like borrowing when it came to, you know, subtraction and all of that. He really struggled with that. And so if he was doing like a super mastery based curriculum, that could have been extremely infuriating for him because he just was not getting it. Every day was a struggle. If he did a spiral program, he would do that one day and then the next day he'd be on to something totally different. But the problem is that he cannot figure out or click with that concept if he's constantly learning something new the next day, and then by the time we get back to that, he totally forgets what he's supposed to do. So again, I think for my son specifically, he really needs a mix of mastery and spiral, not something that's so mastery that he's doing it for, you know, weeks and months, but something that he can do for a few days and then move on, or even just have built-in review of previously learned concepts. So that is a huge reason why we are not going to go back to the Good and the Beautiful for my oldest in particular, just because it is too spiral for him. The other thing that we really struggled with was it over-explained concepts to the point of confusion. So the thing that I loved about the Good and the Beautiful was that it would literally tell you exactly what to say to your student and what your student should say back to you. The problem was that when we got to book 2, I just felt like they were really over-explaining the concept so much that he was getting confused. And, you know, this is something that you could potentially easily fix. I feel like now, looking back, I could probably maybe explain it a different way, or we could watch a video or something for him to grasp it. But if you've only been homeschooling for a short period of time and you have younger children and you are just really at a loss for how you can help them, this can be extremely frustrating for both of you. There was ones where I would just be like, I don't understand what it's saying, here's what you're supposed to do, and he would figure it out that way, but they were clearly trying to teach him a different way to do it. And, you know, after a few weeks of this constantly happening, we were pretty much over the Good and the Beautiful at that point. So we ended up moving on to the next curriculum that I want to talk about, and that is Masterbooks. Now, he actually really enjoyed Masterbooks. Masterbooks is a very affordable Charlotte Mason inspired curriculum. I wouldn't say it's necessarily spiral. Maybe it is. I feel like what they do is they present a story at the start of the week, and then you learn concepts throughout the week in order to master them, and then you move on, and there's review built in. So I feel like it might be a little bit of a mix between mastery and spiral. The biggest problem for us was that it did not have enough repetition. It just did not. You would like learn a concept and then there would maybe be 5 problems that you were supposed to practice for that day. I even purchased the Practice Makes Perfect, I think is what they're called. They're the extra books or PDF that you can get to go along with it so that they can practice those skills. So what I would do is I would pull out a week at a time, and then I would pull out a week of the Practice Makes Perfect, and then we would, instead of spending a full week, we would basically spend 2 or 3 days until I felt like he actually understood the concept and he could do it on his own. So he flew through that book. He probably, I think it's supposed to take 1 school year, and it maybe took not even half of a year. And so it worked in the sense for him that he understood the concepts, and he could master them, but he just didn't have enough repetition. I didn't feel like he was being challenged enough. He would say, "Mom, this is so easy." And I don't know if he meant easy in the sense that I understand this and I'm enjoying this and this is so much better than my other math that I had a difficult time with. But for me, it just did not feel like enough. I felt like we started having to supplement with things. We were having to add in this and add in that, and it just wasn't working. And honestly, the whole goal from the time that we started homeschool was to be able to do math from kindergarten to 2nd grade, and then in 3rd grade, use teaching textbooks. Teaching textbooks was one of the first math curriculums that I ever found, and I'm going to get into that one in just a second. So when he did the Masterbooks Math Book 2, I felt confident that he could jump right into teaching textbooks 3 after that, and actually we would be half a year ahead of schedule. So again, the pros to Masterbooks are that it is affordable, it is a Charlotte Mason inspired curriculum, which I'm always looking for. It's simple to understand and it's very gentle. If you have a child that really struggles with math, this might be a good curriculum to try out. Problem is that it did not have enough repetition or practice problems and things like that. Even adding in the extra practice book was pretty underwhelming, and I had to supplement quite a bit with it. You know, he would learn a concept and do it for a couple days, and then I felt like I needed to add something else in to really help him understand it. So I just felt like I was supplementing math all the time, and I didn't want that. I wanted a curriculum that would take care of math for me so that I could feel like he was being challenged, but that it wasn't too challenging. All right, so then we decided to jump into teaching textbooks. Now, teaching textbooks actually has it so that you can try the first, I think, 15 lessons for free. The great things about teaching textbooks is that it's affordable, it's very user-friendly, so kids can just get on there and start using it. It's affordable. I think it costs $60 for the whole year, or you can try it for free. Kids can do it independently. They can just jump on the computer or a tablet and just get their math done, so you can work with other students. It's very good for visual learners because it is on a screen. So if you have children that, you know, kind of like mine, who get very distracted, it keeps their attention pretty well. And it does the grading for you, which is awesome because, you know, you don't realize how much time you spend in your day going over answers. I know when you grade math, if you don't have a teacher's manual, you might be actually doing all of the math in your head. So it's really good that it grades it for you, and you can go in and actually change the grades if you need to. For instance, if my son got a score lower than a certain amount, I would go in and delete those, and then we would go over the problems together. We started teaching textbooks now. I will say we still do use teaching textbooks as kind of a supplement, fun type math that we do. But at the time, it was not going well. He had a real problem doing it independently. He always wanted me to come help. He would watch the lesson and then go in and do the problems, and he might get them all right, but he did not understand what the heck he had just learned. So I felt like that was a real problem. I did not feel like it was challenging him enough. That is the biggest debate when it comes to teaching textbooks, is it enough? Some people say, yes, it's enough. My kids have to get tested every year, every few years, and they always do above, or, you know, they always excel in their math scores. whatever. Then you have other people who will say, you know, my kids did teaching textbooks for this many years, and then once they got to like middle school or high school math, you know, they were like 2 or 3 grades behind where they should be. You know, I mean, you really hear both sides of the spectrum. So I definitely would say do your research on it, try it out for a short period of time. For us personally, we like to supplement it, so during like Christmas break and summer break, and if he just needs a little bit of a break from his other math that he does, we will kind of pull out teaching textbooks. But again, I feel like it is very similar with The Good and the Beautiful in that it is a very spiral approach, in that you are learning a new concept every single day, and you might having you know, a couple review questions here and there, but if you did not actually grasp the concept the first day, you're just going to keep missing those questions until you go back around to where you started. So personally for us, I feel like teaching textbooks will never be our main math curriculum, especially for my oldest. Maybe my younger son might do better with it, but again, for us, that was a huge con. And the fact that I just didn't feel like, it's weird because I feel like it wasn't challenging enough to him, but at the same time, I felt like he wasn't understanding it enough. You just have to use it and like know to kind of get what I'm saying with that. But again, I'm only sharing this to share our personal journey and the pros and cons from our perspective so that you can make the right decision for your family. Maybe your children are really good at picking up math concepts really quickly, and something like teaching textbooks is going to be the perfect fit for you, especially if you have a large family and lots of children and you need them to be able to work independently on math. It might be a really good option, and I'm never gonna say don't use teaching textbooks because I really do like teaching textbooks. My son really enjoys it and he thinks it's a lot of fun. So after we did teaching textbooks, we tried out a couple of mastery based curriculums just to see how they would go. So first we tried Math Mammoth, and honestly, I really like Math Mammoth. It's very affordable. I like the mastery approach to pretty much everything. I feel like when it comes to like things like phonics and math, I think the mastery approach is the best idea because these are laying the foundation for your children's entire education. So I feel like it's a good idea to master those math and phonics concepts, and Math Mammoth is a mastery approach. So the two biggest mastery-based curriculums that I can think of for math are Math Mammoth and Math UC. And Math UC has a little bit of a higher price tag than Math Mammoth because Math Mammoth, you're literally just getting some workbooks. You don't get any manipulatives or anything like that. So definitely you might need to have your own math manipulatives, but they do have built-in graphics and things like that to kind of help younger students with that. There's a lot of emphasis on mental math, which after using all of these math curriculums, a lot of math curriculums don't have a huge emphasis on mental math. So I actually really appreciate that because I'm not very good at mental math and I went to public school. So, you know, there's some people out there who are really good at it and other people who might need a little bit of work at it. And if you are constantly having to practice that, I don't think that's a bad skill to have. The other thing that I liked is that it did not have a separate teacher's manual. All of the instruction was built in, and I felt like it was challenging. It was challenging enough that it was simple enough to understand, simple enough to explain, but challenging enough that I felt like he was actually being challenged versus like Masterbooks, where I felt like it was just too gentle for him. So some of the cons of Math Mammoth was it was kind of boring. Going from something like The Good and the Beautiful math, where they had all these games and activities built in, or even teaching textbooks, you know, where it's like a video, like on the computer format, going to Math Mammoth was a little bit boring. And he was just like, this is boring. And honestly, I had never really heard him talk about school like that before. But, you know, and I think it also had to do a little bit with the mastery approach. So, you know, we did it for a little while. I kind of kept pushing it, and eventually he kind of folded, and so we went back to the drawing board. But the other thing about Math Mammoth is, since it is a mastery approach curriculum, there just wasn't a ton of review built in. There was review, you know, like maybe from a lesson or two before, but there wasn't a ton of review from everything that they were doing. And so I think I think a lot of these mastery based curriculums I think the biggest thing that parents complain about is that once they, you know, keep getting into higher levels, their kids tend to forget some of the things at lower levels that are kind of like imperative to higher level math. So that's the only thing that I'll mention about that. Again, this is just whether or not it worked for us. I would not push out Math Mammoth. Actually, out of all of these that we have tried, Math Mammoth is probably my secondary favorite. And I actually still have the PDF of Math Mammoth first grade, and I might pull it out for my first grader. I think he might need something a little bit more challenging. I'm not gonna throw out my BJU Math one yet, but he's already like, okay, can we keep going? Like, I'm ready to be challenged here. All right, so what came next after Math Mammoth was BJU Math. Now, BJU Math, this could be a pro or a con, depending where you sit on the spectrum, but it is a traditional math curriculum. If you think of like a Becca or something like that, it is very much like a workbook-based curriculum. And, you know, some people aren't really into that. Some people want like more of like a super hands-on or Charlotte Mason type of curriculum. But this is very much a traditional one. You can bring in manipulatives and things like that, but it's pretty much kind of just built into the curriculum, and you know, you just sit down and do a front and back worksheet, and that's kind of your math for the day. So the things that I really like about BJU Math is the mastery and spiral like kind of combination it has going on. So you will do a chapter and it will cover one concept. So let's say you're doing fractions. So day one, it might be simple, like super simple fractions, like here's a half, here's a fourth, here's a third. And then the next day you might be like, this is, you know, like a whole number and a fraction, and on until you kind of get to where you have built up your understanding of what a fraction is. The other thing that I really like about it is that it has review built into it. So, you know, they might be reviewing their multiplication, or they might be, you know, reviewing decimals or whatever that they have learned, you know, a few chapters back. The other thing I love is that at the end of the chapter, there is a chapter review. So this is going to be everything that they learned throughout that entire chapter. And a chapter takes about a week and a half, depending on how your children do in math. We pretty much do one worksheet every day. Now, sometimes there might be a concept where he gets, you know, really confused or really frustrated with it, and we might do, you know, one page one day, the back page the next day, and so it might take a little bit longer. But on average, it takes a week to 2 weeks to complete a chapter. So at the end of the chapter, there's a chapter review, and then after that, there's a cumulative review. So it's gonna be a review of well, not every single thing, but the majority of things that they've learned. So there might be, you know, like problem number 1 is about like long division. Problem number 2 might be, you know, subtraction with regrouping. The next one might be about fractions. There's word problems built in, that type of thing. So it really makes me feel like he not only is able to grasp a concept fully before moving on, he's also got that built-in review, which he desperately needs. And it really makes me feel confident that these aren't, we don't call them tests, but that's kind of the way I view them. So on the last 2 days of the chapter, for the chapter review and the cumulative review, he does that totally independently. And so, you know, I might introduce a concept to him on certain days, and we might work on the front page, and then I say, okay, you're gonna do the back by yourself. But for those two, that's totally independent, so I can see exactly what he is understanding and what he knows, and then I feel confident that we can move on. So that's what I absolutely love about BJU Math. The other thing that I love about BJU Math is that it's affordable. Now, put your pitchforks down. Some people will go to the BJU website, I think I probably did this at some point, and see how expensive it is. So if you get the workbook, the teacher's manual, the review booklet, the tests and answers book, and the manipulative kit and all of that, it is going to cost you well over $100. If you add in the video component, I think it's over $300. So yes, that aspect is very expensive. However, if you just buy the workbook, it's around $30, and I usually try to buy the teacher's manual off of eBay for around $20 or $25. So I literally spend $50 to $60 on BJU Math. I've never paid more than that for our BJU Math ever. And I can definitely see maybe using the video component in higher grades, maybe middle school or high school. I'm not even 100% sure that we'll continue to use BJU in middle school or high school. It's just my favorite math so far for elementary. But, you know, honestly, you don't even need the teacher's manual, probably for grades K through 3. I like having the teacher's manual because it's fast for me to check answers, and if, you know, there is teaching in it if you want to do that, but a lot of the things that the concepts that they are teaching you are actually at the very top of the page. So a lot of people don't feel like they even need a teacher's manual. So if you don't buy the teacher's manual and you just buy the workbook, it's a $30 workbook. And if you already have your own manipulatives, perfect, you're good to go. So that is what I love about BJU Math. The other thing is that it's colorful. It's not quite as colorful and beautiful as Good and the Beautiful, but it is colorful, and so it is visually appealing. And my younger son, who's in 1st grade, he actually could not wait for the first day of school to start his BJU Math. It's got like a little clown on it and stuff. He calls it his clown school. One day when my husband came home, he said, I did clown school today, and I had to explain that it was clown math for his math that day. Sounded a little strange, but he is, I think he might be a visual learner. I'm not 100% sure yet because he's still in 1st grade. I'm still kind of learning what works for him, but he is very drawn to visually appealing things like that, and he really enjoys the BJU Math. The other thing is that it is really open and go. Some curriculums you have to kind of prepare, you know, like what are we going to be doing today, or, you know, this path. You literally just open it, see what your lesson is for that day, explain the concept. We do the front page together, flips it over, and he does the back page. Good to go. Not a ton going on there. Math maybe takes 15, maybe 20 minutes if it's something that they have trouble understanding, but overall, it's pretty good. So as I said, really the only cons I can think of are that it is more traditional, which some people may not care for, and that it can be expensive. It doesn't have to be, but it can be. So we also tried Math-UC, and I didn't really mention this with my son because we did not do it for very long. My friend had the DVDs and the teacher's book, and you can actually go onto Math-UC's website. You can get printable practice sheets to go along with each lesson. So we borrowed her DVD and her textbook, and then I printed out some practice problems. And then we were really trying to master regrouping or borrowing with subtraction. That is something that my son really struggled with. And so we tried it with Math-UC just to see if a more mastery approach with, you know, the blocks and everything like that would work out better for him. And he absolutely hated it. And it explained it in a way that he didn't understand. And he got super frustrated. And he was like, I don't like this. He's confusing me. I don't know what he's talking about. Yeah. So the pros of Math-UC from a broad spectrum is that it is mastery based. So if you want a mastery based approach for math, this is going to be a good option. The other thing is that this goes all the way up through high school. So some of these curriculums like Mammoth only goes up to like 7th grade math. So this goes all the way to 12th grade math, which is really good. So if your child is doing well with this program and thriving, they could do it all the way to 12th grade. The other good thing is that it has the video component. So if you want to be able to, you know, kind of sit your child down and have someone else explain it to them, or maybe you have multiple kids and you need to work with one and the other one can watch their video and then swap or whatever, this might be a good option as well. The other thing is that most of your materials can be reused. So the video and the teacher's book you can use for multiple children, and you just have to buy their own student workbook every year. So this is good. The other thing is that kind of once you eat the cost of the manipulative kit, like the blocks that you get, it's actually not super expensive every year. So when you buy the whole kit, it's over $100 to get the blocks and the books and the textbook and the student workbook. But once you kind of get all that every year, all you have to buy is your workbook and your textbook and your video component, and I think that's around like $60. So again, it's a little bit of cost up front, which kind of deterred me in the very beginning of our homeschool journey, but after, you know, you keep going through it and then multiple kids, it's really not going to be all that expensive, but it can be expensive up front. So again, the cons for this one was that it was just a little bit confusing for him. He did not like the way that Mr. Demi explained things. Sorry. He just didn't really, I really wanted him to like it, but he just didn't. And again, it can be a little bit of a cost up front. The other thing is that, again, with mastery-based curriculums, is that there's just, some people just don't think there's enough review built in. I didn't use it long enough to really know whether there was enough review built in, but this is one of the biggest gripes I see for people that stop using Math-UC, is that their kids are, you know, able to do this really high level of math, but they forget the basic stuff because they haven't been reviewing it. I had a screaming baby. I had to get my screaming baby. So I also wanted to talk about Mathseeds. So Mathseeds is an online math curriculum. You've probably heard of Reading Eggs. Well, they have a math version within that company that is called Mathseeds. And my first grader has been doing that since kindergarten, and he really enjoys it. It's really a lot of fun. We don't use it as a full math curriculum, but I know some people do. So this would be good if you have like K through 2 and you want them to be able to do something similar to teaching textbooks, because teaching textbooks does not start until 3rd grade. The only bad thing about Mathseeds is it can be a little bit pricey. I think it's about $10 a month, and you have to pay for Mathseeds and Reading Eggs, and we don't even utilize the Reading Eggs part. So I only get this for him every few months, and he'll play it for a little bit of time, and then you know, like during a supplement, during Christmas or summer school or things like that, and he really enjoys it. It's pretty much just all games and videos, and it really helps him see what he's learning visually on the computer. He really enjoys that part. The other really cool thing about Mathseeds is that they actually offer worksheets that you can just print out. So if you pay for Mathseeds, you can actually just print out these worksheets. You can also buy on Amazon, you can buy the big workbooks. So if you really like Mathseeds, but you want like an off the computer option, you could buy the whole workbooks and use those. All right, and finally, the last math that we have used was Interactive Math K. This is from the website, The Crafty Classroom. Now here's the thing, we used this last year, and I'm gonna tell you the pros and the cons about it. However, I actually wrote a pretty thorough review on their website about this curriculum in hopes to help other people, because let's face it, not every curriculum is going to work for every child, and they either did not post it or deleted my review. So that did not make me very happy, because I feel like companies that do that just try to make their product look better than it is. And if you have nothing to hide in your product, there should be nothing wrong with somebody giving a 3 or 4 star review. So the pros of Interactive Math K was that it was, well, interactive. He really enjoyed that he would have like a worksheet or a lesson, and then we would play some type of game or do something interactive, something that he could get his hands on, which I think is perfect for the kindergarten age. It was also pretty challenging for him, and he really enjoyed it. There was a lot of activities that he did that he actually really liked, that we have pulled out multiple times. Like they would use card games and things like that, stuff that he just really enjoyed, and I always felt like he was being challenged. I didn't feel like he was getting easily frustrated, but I also did not feel like it was so easy that he was flying through it. So some of the cons of that curriculum was just that the order in which they taught things didn't really make a lot of sense to me. Now again, I'm not a curriculum creator. I don't have like a master's degree or anything like that. You know, I went to college, but you know, I'm just a mom trying to homeschool her kids. But the way that they taught certain concepts didn't make sense to me, especially since I've used so many math curriculums now. I'm not an expert at all, even the slightest, but I feel like it just makes sense to teach certain concepts in certain order, right? It makes sense to learn 0 to 10 and master those numbers before you start adding in teen numbers, before you start trying to add and subtract teen numbers. It makes more sense to understand subtraction before you start using higher ordered numbers. I don't know, maybe that's just me. The other thing was that some of the concepts felt really rushed. It felt like they were trying to cram so much into this kindergarten curriculum that it was just like super rushed. The other thing was that it had tons of errors and typos, and it drove me absolutely insane. Some pages I just had to throw away. Some pages I had to like manipulate myself in order to get them to work. It was just super frustrating. You also have to print it yourself. So the PDF was $25 and to get it printed was about $25. So it cost about $50. So some of the reason that I chose this, not necessarily is because it was cheaper, but I mean, it did play a role in my choice. And so it was a little bit frustrating that the one that it was really between the two, and I was like, you know what, this one's a little bit cheaper and I can reuse it because it's a PDF, etc. And then I ended up spending about as much as I would have anyways on the other one. And it felt very Common Core to me. I'm not totally opposed to Common Core or teaching certain things in around the same time as public school, but it just felt very Common Core. Like, that's why it felt so rushed, because kids in kindergarten need to learn this exact stuff. And so even now, going to some of the other curriculum that we're using, I feel like he's a little bit past some of that stuff because they crammed so much into it. I mean, he hasn't mastered most of those things, but he's definitely already been exposed to them. Okay guys, so that is it for me. Hopefully this helped. As I said, I just wanted to make this video to share our math journey and to kind of give you an idea as to why certain curriculums worked for us or why they didn't. Obviously, every child learns differently. That is the beauty of homeschooling, is that we can choose whatever curriculum works for our children. And so I just wanted to share that with you guys. I feel like there's been a few people that have either approached me in comments or social media or things like that that said, you know, I really feel like I can't do this. This is hard to pick a math curriculum. My child is struggling. We've tried so many different ones. And, you know, I would just say keep trying. It's okay to keep, you know, we did 5 math curriculums in one school year, and I felt like the worst mom in the world. But then we finally landed on a curriculum that works so well for him. It may not work perfectly for my next child, and we may have to keep searching for something for him, but I know for my oldest, at least until about 6th grade, this curriculum is working really, really well for him. So with all of that being said, if you have not yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it and it was helpful. Let me know down in the comments your favorite math curriculum. Did any of these work for you? Did any of them not work for you? Let me know, and I will see you guys next time. Bye. You say bye? Say bye. Say bye. Yeah.